Lock my stitches. Lock my stitches. Now I can save that for other areas of the quilt. This is just to kind of press that fabric down, give it that faux. Okay, so now we've got this all marked out. We're gonna start to quilt out. I'm gonna start down here, lock my stitches. Put on my eyes for this. Have my little guy handy. Gonna go up. And I'm just going to bring it back, travel the ditch, up, back, travel the ditch, up, up. Let me check my length there. Down. Pause. I'm gonna switch to my medium 45, and I've actually put a little bit of spritz on the back. Let me get the thread off of there. Line that up, and now with that spritz on the back, that means that this is going to stay nice and stable and not weeble wobble. So I'm going to go ahead, go up, and I'm going to walk my fingers. I never want to have my fingers back here with my hopping foot up there with the ruler, because my ruler is going to do this craziness. I know I've mentioned that before, but that's something that always should be mentioned. Up, line it up. Let me snip that tail. Get it in place. Walk. Stop there. Slide over. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm not going to do this line. I'm going to wait and I'm going to come back and do this and all my lines above the fish. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come over this way and work my way down and go all the way to the end, and then I'll come back and do that. Because then I can work from the top up here and come down, up, over, down, up, over, down, up, and that's how I'll do that. Okay. Line that up, down, over, up, touch, down, over, up, down, over, up, down, over, now I'm going to switch to my small 45. Well, we're pulling out the 45s today. This is the thing, when you need a different size, it's nice to have it. I use my medium 45 probably about 10 times a year. Not very often, but boy, when I need it, I need it. And on a line like this, I don't want a ruler that I have to slide, because you can get a little divot and that's going to show up. The key is you just want to make sure, walk your hands along with your ruler. Pause, stop, walk. And anytime you're needing to go a distance like this, you make sure you've got a little sticky stuff on the back of your ruler. Okay, now what's going to happen is I come over here. This line is going to stop here. And what I'm going to do is save all this for when I work my way all the way over. Now I can switch back to my regular ditcher. And again, this is a perfect time for a good book on tape. Speaking of which, I have been listening to a really good one. It's called The Secret of Giza. And it's kind of a remake of the old Escape to Witch Mountain with Tony and Tia. They did a Disney film about that. And the book, which is by Alexander Key, is completely different than the Disney movie. But anyways, I digress. So this book is like an adult redoing of that whole story, which is awesome. That was my favorite book when I was a kid. I was such a book nook. Loved my books. Saved my lunch money and I'd go buy books. Now I save my lunch money and I go buy thread and fabric and coloring books and art supplies. All right, Missy, you gotta move. Move out of the way, sweetie. Get up. Up, 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 up. Sorry about that. Sometimes you gotta tell the dogs to go away for a second. Especially when they're 150 pounds. You just can't step over that, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I got the look. How dare you treat me that way in my studio? Did you film it? I'm not quite sure if you know who I am. That was the look. Now you could do this. I'm just showing another option. So I could do like a square 45 zigzag up, ditch, down, over, up, ditch, down, over, Now I've been really lucky with Iris. I used to have my Doberman. Her favorite place to lay it would be where the batting would hit the floor and kind of go back under the machine, and she'd want to be on the other side. And then I wouldn't see her, and I'd go to roll a quilt and I'd rip batting on my own quilts, thank goodness, not on a client quilt. Another reason why we have somebody come in and vacuum every day. Now she's a Dane, so she doesn't shed, so I'm pretty lucky. Now Gypsy, who's a shepherd mix, she sheds constantly, but we don't have her near the machine, so that works out. And she has a favorite bed, so as long as the bed is away from the machines, she's good to go. Okay, so now that I'm over here, we're going to go ahead, and I think I'll come back down on that line. Work my way over. Up. Okay, I'm going to grab my small 45. Up. See, you'll get pretty comfortable and you'll be able to travel that ditch good without a ruler eventually. You'll just get a good feel on how to push the machine straight up. Straight up. Keep your arm locked, and that keeps it nice and straight for those short little distances.
Switch back.
And lock. Once I get up there, I'm going to grab my stepping stool so that I can work my way over. Now again, I'm going to keep that in place. It's got a nice little sticky stuff. I'm going to walk my finger, walk my finger, walk my finger. I keep my hand right on this. Rich, can you get a shot of that with camera A? So as I'm walking my finger, I also try to keep my finger back here. So as I'm walking, it keeps me stable, and it keeps this finger away from the hopping foot. Otherwise, you might be walking like this and you could get your finger under there. But that's the nice thing about these handles is I can have something back here for leverage. Okay, and now I'm gonna switch for a second, grab my step stool. Okay. I can switch back to my small 45 from my medium 45. Make sure my belly isn't up in the shot. Come up. And down. Now, I'm simply going to refollow the ditch around the fish. And I could have done a double line, but it's a long line, and I'd rather just do that. Walk, 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 walk. Line it up. I'll tell you what, I'm really liking the look of this, and I think I might actually just go with the 45-degree here. Now also remember, I want to stay on that line the same place that I was on this line, so that way the eye makes sure that it looks as though it is traveling straight through. So I'm not just looking here and going up, I'm also checking down here on that same chalk line, and down here I was on the inside of that chalk line, which means over here I'm going to stay on the inside. Because once I remove the chalk, again, I want it to marry visually. Because there's always going to be that person who can see that it's just a smidge off. Again, I will remind you, I'm using these 45-degree rulers for these long hauls. This is not something that I normally would use as a ditch ruler, just because it's too easy to lose control and forget to walk your finger and end up with a broken needle, or worse, bad timing. And so there's a place and time for everything. Ooh, that does look pretty. Love that texture. Yum yum, especially with a double bat and a wool to boot. 80/20 in wool. Always looks so yummy. And it's also nice because it will not hold the crease if it does get folded and put away. Whereas if I used 80/20 in the poly down, I might hold the crease. And I gotta tell you as well, she did a beautiful job with this fish, applique. Look at that. It's beautiful. Love it, love it. Those stitches are wonderful. Machine stitched and applique, but nice. Look at that. Just gorgeous. She's dead on. Just a beautiful job. You know, there are times when machine applique just makes something sing. We're going to be doing some machine applique with our portraiture this winter. And even if you're not really into portraiture, I'll make sure that I have a little bit of a simple pattern that I post for y'all. And even if it's not your jam, I'd still want to see you try a little bit. And you'll have a nice little piece, and you might find out you love it. I normally do turn, well, I don't do needle turn. What I do is the multiple layers of the wax paper. Then I iron it around that. I like that because I like that exactness. I like a nice pressed under edge rather than a raw edge myself. But on something like this, it works. She did good. Travel down the ditch. Now on this guy, go up. Ooh, just missed the tail. Thank you, thank you. Quilting gods. Come down. Go back so I can match that to what's above. How'd I do? Did I get it all? I think I got it all. Go up here. Take my 5 stitches forward, 4 stitches back. Done. Needle up. Let's pull back and look at this. Okay, this is my little guy. This is a Scotch brand lint remover with this red velour. And what's nice about this is one way when you move it, it's going to grab. And then the other one, it's not. It's actually something that you actually use to kind of clean something off with. So I'm going to go on the rough side. I'm just going to go right on here. And that gets rid of most of that chalk. Get rid of that tail. Now on this dark black fabric, I might actually have to, most of it's coming right off, but I might actually have to just go over it with a damp microfiber. And when I say damp microfiber cloth, what I mean is you wet it and then you really wring it out. The other thing is I could also use, for the little areas where it's a little pesky, I could use the little bow and eraser, and that little bow and eraser actually comes in the big erasers, which you always want to have handy, which I do not right at this second, but somewhere in your quilt space. I'm just going to take this down, get rid of the majority of the chalk, and you'll see when we hang this quilt up, you won't see any residue from the chalk once I'm finished. I will row back once I finish the bottom of the quilt, and I will double check all this while it's stable and on the machine, and then if I have to go over things, I can go over things then. Okay, and I'll tell you what, I think what I'm going to do, you can't see the texture, but I will get a nice texture shot here in a second with the lights down. And what we'll do is I'll show you that texture, and I'll talk about why I'm not going to do crosshatch the opposite way, because it doesn't need it. Okay, so as you see here, you can see that wonderful diagonal from upper left to lower right, and I just love it. I think crosshatch would be too much. And here's the other thing. I want you to take a look here. Do you see how this angle of her piecing is going up at this direction? If I did cross-hatching, this isn't quite 45 degrees, and so what would happen is it would compete. But since I have the angles going this way, that's going to be a really nice effect, actually. So, and I love that. Rich just said he loved it because it reminds him of a vintage car upholstery. That wonderful feel that you would feel on those. Wasn't it leather seats? Leatherish, vinyl, whatever they had back then. Leather, yeah. So it just looks so nice. And I'm going to come in here later on when I'm done with the quilt and roll back, and I'm going to put some, when we do our touch-ups, and I'm going to put some fins, not fins, but scales in that. Gills, I'm sorry, Rich said gills. So there we go. So now we're going to roll this, move on, and move through the process.